He sacrificed his Luna for his first love. Then the Alpha King made her his queen. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, it is free, and it is the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic and emotional stories like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where in the world you are watching from and what time it is where you are right now. We love seeing how far these stories travel and knowing who is joining us today. Now, let's begin today's story. If you already decided what I must lose, Damon, do not insult me by calling it my choice. Elena Whitmore's voice carried farther through Blackwood Hall than she intended, and suddenly even the musicians near the Moon Gate stopped playing. Hundreds of pack members had gathered for the renewal moon ceremony, expecting to watch Damon Blackwood publicly reaffirm Elena as his Luna. For 6 years, she had stood beside him through failed harvests, bitter winters, council disputes, and every quiet crisis no celebration ever remembered. Tonight should have been simple. Then Vanessa Hale walked through the ceremonial doors. Damon had once loved Vanessa before he ever met Elena. Everyone knew the story. What Elena had never known was that Damon had apparently never finished living inside it. Vanessa stood beneath the silver lanterns wearing the blue colors of her family, looking almost as uncomfortable as Elena felt. Damon approached the moonstone without meeting Elena's eyes. There is an inheritance tied to Vanessa's bloodline, he explained. Blackwood needs access to it before winter. The old law requires her bond to the Alpha line to be restored. Elena stared at him. And mine. His silence answered first, temporarily released. Something cold settled beneath Elena's ribs. You told me this ceremony would renew our bond. I was trying to protect you from unnecessary fear. Elena almost laughed, but there was nothing funny left. On the ceremonial table rested a document bearing 3 council seals. Damon had prepared everything before speaking to her. How long have you known? She asked. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. She remembered breakfast beside him. Council meetings. His hand resting over hers while he promised that after tonight, they would finally have peace. Every ordinary moment rearranged itself into something unfamiliar. Vanessa stepped forward. Elena, I was told you had agreed. Elena looked at her sharply. Vanessa's expression held confusion rather than triumph. That hurt differently. Damon had not merely chosen his first love over Elena. He had apparently made each woman believe the other understood. I agreed to nothing, Elena said. Damon lowered his voice. Please, Blackwood needs this. Elena looked around the hall. Elders avoided her eyes. Guards stood motionless. Pack families waited beneath the ancient banners. They all needed something from her, yet nobody had thought she deserved the truth. She approached the moonstone. If I refuse. Damon hesitated. The council could invoke the emergency provision. There it was. Her choice had never been a choice. Elena placed her palm above the silver seal, but she did not touch it yet. Then remember this moment accurately, she said. I am not giving you permission. I am refusing to let your decision become my shame. She completed the release because she would not allow frightened families to pay for Damon's deception. The silver bond around her wrist faded until only a faint pale line remained. No thunder answered. No dramatic curse followed. Elena simply felt strangely quiet. She removed the Luna pendant from her neck and placed it beside Damon. Elena, he whispered. She stepped away before he could reach for her. Vanessa watched her with widening realization. Elena crossed Blackwood Hall alone, passed beneath the Moon Gate, and entered the snowy courtyard without looking back. Then something impossible happened. The ancient stone arch behind her, dark for more than 8 centuries, awakened. A silver symbol spread across its surface like moonlight over water. Everyone inside the hall fell silent. Elena turned. At the center of the glowing stone was a crown surrounded by a crescent, and beneath it appeared 4 forgotten words. The Queen walks unclaimed. By sunrise, Elena had crossed the northern boundary of Blackwood territory with 1 travel bag, $43 in cash, and no plan beyond refusing to return. The strange words from the Moon Gate followed her through every mile of the journey. The Queen walks unclaimed. She did not understand them, and for once, she did not want another powerful person explaining what her life was supposed to mean. 3 days later, Elena reached Mooncrest, a mountain territory nearly 200 miles north, where winter markets filled the stone streets beneath silver banners. No one there knew her as Damon Blackwood's former Luna. To the woman renting rooms above a bakery, she was simply Elena, an Omega looking for work. That anonymity felt more valuable than any title she had lost. She found a position at a community library connected to Mooncrest's Winter Relief Center, spending her mornings organizing records and her afternoons helping distribute meals, blankets, and medicine to families from the outer settlements. The work was ordinary. Elena loved that about it. No ceremonial pendant hung around her neck. No council expected her to smile through decisions made without her. When people thanked her, they thanked Elena, not the Luna. One snowy afternoon, raised voices interrupted the quiet library. Two brothers from neighboring families stood across a table, arguing over a written boundary agreement their fathers had signed 20 years earlier. Each claimed the other family had violated a sacred oath, and the dispute had grown serious enough that Mooncrest officials planned to review it. Elena approached carefully. "May I see the agreement?" One brother frowned. "It is an old wolf oath. You would not understand it." Elena had heard that tone before. She ignored it. The parchment looked ordinary until she noticed the ink around two signatures had faded differently. A faint silver thread seemed to move beneath the words. "This oath is not broken," Elena murmured. "It is incomplete." Both men stared at her. Elena touched the edge of the parchment. Warmth traveled through her fingers. Suddenly, several faded lines reappeared, revealing a forgotten clause granting both families shared winter access to the disputed land. The room became silent. Silver symbols shimmered briefly across the page before disappearing. Elena pulled her hand away. "What did you do?" one brother whispered. "I do not know." But the argument ended. Neither family had betrayed the other. Someone had simply allowed part of the truth to disappear. The similarity struck Elena harder than she expected. That evening, she sat alone beside her small apartment window while snow gathered on the rooftops. She looked at the pale mark remaining on her wrist from the released Luna bond. For the first time, another symbol flickered beside it, a tiny silver crescent. Across Mooncrest Palace, 12 miles away, King Nathaniel Ashford was reviewing territorial reports when his royal archivist entered without knocking. Margaret Vale carried the restored boundary agreement with both hands. "Your Majesty, you need to see this." Nathaniel examined the silver residue along the parchment. His expression changed immediately. Who awakened it? An Omega working at the Eastern Library. Nathaniel looked toward the ancient royal shelves behind him. One locked cabinet had not been opened during his lifetime. Carved into its door was the same crescent now faintly glowing on Elena's wrist. "What is her name?" Margaret asked. Nathaniel studied the symbol before answering. "Do not summon her." Margaret blinked. "Your Majesty? If this is what I think it is, the last thing she needs is another ruler deciding where she must go." He closed the report. "Find out what she wants first. Then ask whether she is willing to speak with me." Far across the city, Elena watched the crescent fade from her skin, unaware that an 800-year-old royal secret had just recognized her. Margaret Vale arrived at the Eastern Library the next morning without guards, royal colors, or anything that might turn Elena into a public curiosity. She waited until Elena finished helping an elderly couple locate winter housing records before introducing herself. "I work with the Mooncrest Royal Archives," Margaret said. Elena's hand paused over a stack of books. "This is about yesterday." "Yes." Margaret placed a sealed envelope on the desk. "King Nathaniel Ashford would like to speak with you, but only if you wish to speak with him." Elena stared at the envelope. The last alpha who needed something from her had arranged the outcome before asking the question. "What happens if I say no?" "Nothing." Elena searched Margaret's face for hesitation. There was none. "Then I will meet him." An hour later, Elena entered Mooncrest Palace expecting a throne room. Instead, Margaret led her into a quiet library where Nathaniel stood beside a long table covered with old manuscripts. He wore no crown. That surprised her first. The fact that he remained on his side of the table surprised her second. "Miss Whitmore," he said, "thank you for coming. Your archivist said I had a choice." "You did." Elena glanced toward the manuscripts. "Then tell me why an 800-year-old symbol appeared when I touched a boundary agreement." Nathaniel almost smiled at her directness. "I was hoping you could tell me." "I cannot." "Then we begin with what neither of us knows." The answer unsettled her because it contained no command. Nathaniel opened a leather volume and turned it toward her. The same crescent she had seen on her wrist was stamped into the page. Beneath it stood a crown. Elena's breath slowed. I saw those symbols at Blackwood's Moongate. Nathaniel's expression sharpened. When the night my Luna bond was released, she gave him only the necessary details. He did not interrupt. He did not tell her what she should have done. When she finished, Nathaniel looked toward Margaret. Open the Western Archive. Margaret hesitated. That collection is restricted to the crown. Not anymore. Elena folded her arms. Why are you helping me? Nathaniel met her eyes. Because something in my kingdom recognized you before I did. I would rather understand why than pretend authority gives me the answer. The Western Archive had remained sealed for generations. Dust-covered shelves of silver-edged books, ceremonial records, and maps older than Mooncrest Palace itself. Elena moved slowly between them until warmth returned to her wrist. She followed it to a narrow book hidden behind a row of royal genealogies. The moment she touched its cover, silver letters appeared. The First Queen Covenant. Margaret inhaled sharply. Nathaniel became completely still. Elena opened the book. Most pages described an ancient bond older than the modern Luna tradition. One phrase appeared repeatedly, Alpha King's Queen. Elena looked at Nathaniel. What does that mean? I do not know enough to answer honestly. She appreciated the word honestly more than she wanted to. Together, they continued reading. The records spoke of a sacred grace capable of revealing the truth within broken oaths, restoring balance where bonds had been distorted, and recognizing a queen no king could command into existence. Elena's fingers tightened around the page. Then she reached the passage explaining how such a queen was recognized. The next page was gone. Not damaged. Removed. A clean line remained where someone had carefully cut it from the binding. Elena felt the familiar cold of discovering that truth had been deliberately withheld. Nathaniel saw it too. Someone wanted this forgotten. Elena turned toward the final surviving sentence. Silver light slowly appeared beneath the faded ink. When the discarded bond releases what it could not value, the first queen may walk again. Neither of them spoke. Then a second line began forming across the empty margin. She will be recognized first by the king who refuses to claim her. The missing page changed the way Elena looked at every surviving record in the Western Archive. If someone had removed the explanation of the First Queen Covenant, then forgetting it had not been an accident. For the next 4 days, she divided her time between the Eastern Library and Mooncrest Palace, refusing Nathaniel's offer to move into royal quarters. He never asked twice. Together with Margaret, they compared old marriage records, sacred bond laws, and royal journals, searching for references to the first queen. Nathaniel treated Elena as a partner in the investigation rather than a mystery to possess, and that difference slowly became impossible for her to ignore. On the 5th afternoon, Margaret entered carrying news from the southern gate. Blackwood's delegation has arrived. Elena's fingers went still over an ancient ledger. Nathaniel noticed immediately. Damon and Vanessa Hale, Margaret replied. Blackwood had requested an audience concerning winter trade rights. Elena considered leaving before the royal gathering that evening, then stopped herself. She had spent too many years rearranging her life around Damon's decisions. I will stay, she said. Nathaniel gave one quiet nod. Then you stay because you chose to. Hours later, Elena stood near the archive entrance as Damon Blackwood entered Mooncrest's great hall. Vanessa walked beside him. Damon saw Elena before he saw the king. Shock crossed his face so openly that several council members followed his gaze. Elena. She felt the old instinct to explain herself rise inside her, then disappear. Damon. His eyes moved from her simple silver dress to Nathaniel, standing several feet away. What are you doing here? Nathaniel said nothing. Elena answered for herself. Living. Vanessa looked between them. Unlike Damon, she seemed relieved. I wanted to find you. Elena's expression tightened. Why? Vanessa lowered her voice. Because I learned the truth after you left. Damon turned toward her. Vanessa. She ignored him. He told me you had agreed to release the bond months before the ceremony. He said you wanted to leave Blackwood. Elena stared at Damon. The betrayal became suddenly clearer. He had not only taken away her choice. He had rewritten it. Is that what you told everyone? Damon stepped closer, stopping when Elena instinctively moved back. I was trying to keep the pact stable, by making my silence sound like consent. The great hall quieted around them. Damon glanced toward the watching council. This is not the place. Elena almost smiled. You had no problem making my sacrifice public. Why should the truth require privacy? Nathaniel remained where he was, his hands relaxed at his sides. He could have ended the conversation with one royal command. Instead, he let Elena own every word. Damon exhaled. Blackwood needed Vanessa's inheritance. Without it, families could have suffered. Then you should have trusted those families with the truth. You should have trusted me. Vanessa's face fell. I would never have accepted the right if I had known. Elena believed her. That realization removed the easiest target for her anger. Then this was never you against me, Elena said softly. It was someone deciding that both of us could be managed if we knew only half the truth. Damon looked as if the sentence had stripped away every defense he had prepared. Before he could answer, silver light appeared beneath Elena's feet. A deep tone moved through the great hall. Everyone turned as 7 ancient wolf statues lining the chamber awakened with pale light in their stone eyes. One after another, their heads slowly turned toward Elena. Nathaniel's expression changed. Margaret whispered from beside the archive doors, Your Majesty, the first Queen records. The crescent on Elena's wrist appeared again, brighter than before. Damon stared at it. Vanessa stepped back in wonder. Then the oldest symbol carved above Nathaniel's throne began to glow, a crescent surrounding a crown. Nathaniel looked at Elena, but he did not approach her. Whatever this means, he said quietly, the choice of what happens next is still yours. The 7 stone wolves lowered their heads toward Elena, and somewhere beneath Mooncrest Palace, a door sealed for 800 years opened for the first time. The 7 stone wolves remained bowed long after the silver light beneath Elena's feet faded, and no one in the great hall seemed willing to move first. Damon looked from the ancient statues to Elena, as if trying to understand how the woman he had dismissed could suddenly stand at the center of something older than his entire bloodline. Nathaniel turned toward Margaret. What opened beneath the palace? I believe it is the Hall of First Queens. A murmur spread through the gathering. Damon shook his head. That is a legend. Margaret faced him calmly. So was the First Queen Covenant until 5 minutes ago. Elena looked toward Nathaniel. What exactly is Queen's Grace? He could have answered with authority. Instead, he admitted, I only know fragments. Margaret retrieved a narrow silver volume from the archive and opened it across the council table. The surviving text described Queen's Grace as a sacred gift that could recognize truth within damaged bonds, restore balance to corrupted oaths, and expose promises built upon deception. Elena remembered the boundary agreement at the Eastern Library. That is what happened to the parchment. Margaret nodded. Most likely. Damon stepped forward. Then if she carries this power, you intend to make her your queen. Every face turned toward Nathaniel. Elena felt her chest tighten. There it was again, the assumption that her future would be decided between powerful men. Nathaniel's answer came without hesitation. No. Damon blinked. Elena did too. Nathaniel looked toward the glowing crescent above the throne. According to the covenant, an alpha king cannot make a true queen. Margaret turned another page. The wording is precise. The crown may recognize her, but the king cannot create her authority. Vanessa frowned. Then who chooses her? Before Margaret could answer, the floor beneath the council table illuminated. 7 silver paths extended from the wolf statues and met beneath Elena. Ancient words appeared across the stone. The queen is known not by what she receives, but by what she refuses to take. Silence followed. Another inscription formed. Let the wrong stand before the power to answer wrong with power. Elena understood before anyone explained. The covenant was not offering her a crown yet. It was testing what she would do with the authority suddenly placed within reach. A silver circle appeared around Damon. He stared down at it, alarmed. Nathaniel immediately looked at Elena. You are not required to do anything. Margaret read the final surviving passage. The bearer of Queen's Grace may request judgment over a sacred oath broken through deception. Damon went pale. Elena. She looked at the man she had once trusted with her future. For one brief moment, she imagined demanding everything back. His title, his standing, the respect he had protected at her expense. The thought brought no peace. Vanessa stepped beside Elena instead of Damon. Whatever you decide, tell them I did not know. Elena met her eyes. I know. Then she faced the council. I do not want his title. I do not want his pack. I do not want humiliation returned for humiliation. Damon stared at her. Elena continued. I want the Blackwood records corrected. Every Luna must receive complete information before any bond ceremony. No emergency provision may replace consent. And Vanessa's name will not carry blame for a decision made through a lie. The silver circle around Damon vanished. For several heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the 7 wolves raised their heads. Light poured through the great hall, gathering around Elena without touching anyone else. The pale crescent on her wrist transformed into an intricate silver mark resembling an open crown. Margaret's voice dropped to a whisper. Queen's Grace. Nathaniel watched Elena with something deeper than admiration, but he remained exactly where he stood. The great doors beneath the palace opened another inch. From somewhere far below came a soft, resonant sound, like an ancient bell answering across centuries. New words appeared above Nathaniel's throne. A true queen cannot be claimed. She must enter freely. Elena looked toward the hidden stairway as cold silver light rose from beneath the palace. Somewhere below waited the Hall of First Queens, and the missing truth about the power now awakening inside her. But beside the inscription appeared one final line that made even Margaret fall silent. Before the queen may enter, the king must surrender his right to choose her. Nathaniel read the final inscription twice, but its meaning did not change. Before the queen could enter the hall, the king had to surrender his right to choose her. Around them, Mooncrest remained silent. Elena watched Nathaniel carefully, expecting hesitation. A royal bond with a queen carried political weight, ancient authority, and power no living council fully understood. Yet Nathaniel did not ask Margaret whether surrendering that right could weaken his crown. He did not ask what he might gain by keeping it. Instead, he removed the silver ring bearing the royal wolf seal from his hand and placed it on the council table. What must I do? Margaret searched the old volume until faint writing appeared along the bottom of a page. The king must declare before witnesses that the bearer of Queen's Grace owes him no bond, no crown, no loyalty, and no affection. Damon stared at Nathaniel. You would give up the right to claim her before knowing whether she could strengthen your kingdom? Nathaniel turned toward him. That question is exactly why the covenant requires this. Elena felt something tighten behind her ribs. Damon had once spoken of love while arranging her sacrifice. Nathaniel was being offered extraordinary power and was choosing to remove himself from the decision. He stepped into the center of the 7 silver paths. Elena Whitmore owes me nothing, he said. His voice carried through the hall. Not because she lacks value, but because her value does not create a debt to me. Her power is hers. Her future is hers. If she leaves Mooncrest tomorrow, she leaves with my respect and without consequence. The open crown on Elena's wrist warmed. Nathaniel continued, I surrender any royal right, ancient or modern, that would allow me to choose her as queen without her free consent. Silver light moved beneath his feet. The hidden doors below the palace opened fully. Elena heard several people gasp, but her attention remained on Nathaniel. He had done what Damon never had. He had made her freedom more important than his preferred outcome. Margaret looked toward the inscription above the throne. The words had changed. The king has released the choice. Now let the queen choose what truth deserves to survive. Damon lowered his eyes. Vanessa stood quietly beside him. Elena approached the council table and looked at the corrected Blackwood records. There is one more thing. Damon raised his head. What? You will tell your pack what happened yourself. His expression tightened. Elena, I already agreed to correct the records. Records matter. Accountability matters more. She did not speak with anger. Tell them Vanessa did not deceive me. Tell them I was not informed. Tell them the emergency right was presented as a choice after the decision had already been made. Damon looked around the crowded hall, understanding that Elena could have demanded punishment and had instead demanded truth. I will. Elena turned to Vanessa. And you are free to decide what you do with that truth. Vanessa's eyes glistened. Thank you. Elena shook her head gently. You do not owe me gratitude for refusing to blame you for something you did not know. The open crown mark suddenly brightened. Every damaged oath record on the council table shimmered, and faded words returned across pages that had been altered over generations. Margaret stared in astonishment. Queen's Grace is restoring the original promises. Elena looked down at hundreds of forgotten clauses becoming visible. This power was larger than her own betrayal. It could protect people she would never meet. Nathaniel seemed to understand the same thing. You could change every bond law in the kingdom, he said. Elena met his eyes. Not alone. A quiet warmth entered his expression. Good answer. She almost smiled. Then the ancient stairway beneath Mooncrest illuminated from the first step to the last. Elena approached it, but before descending, she looked back at Nathaniel. Are you coming? He did not move. The inscription says the queen must enter freely. I asked whether you were coming, Nathaniel. For the first time that evening, surprise broke through his composure. Elena extended her hand. Walking beside me is not the same as choosing for me. Nathaniel crossed the distance and accepted it. Together they descended beneath Mooncrest while the 7 stone wolves bowed behind them. At the bottom waited an enormous silver door bearing the names of forgotten queens. Elena's mark touched the air before it, and the door slowly opened. Inside stood 7 empty thrones and 1 sealed chamber. Above that chamber were words neither Margaret nor the royal records had ever mentioned. The first queen did not disappear. She was hidden. The Hall of First Queens did not resemble a royal chamber. There were no jewels, banners, or monuments celebrating conquest. 7 stone seats formed a wide circle beneath a ceiling painted with phases of the moon, and behind each seat stood shelves filled with handwritten records. Elena moved slowly between them, Nathaniel beside her, but never ahead. The first journal belonged to a queen who had ended a generations-long dispute by forcing 2 powerful families to reveal the promises they had hidden from their children. Another belonged to a queen who had changed Mooncrest law so an Omega could refuse a bond without losing protection from the pack. Elena touched the faded pages carefully. They were not remembered for who loved them. Nathaniel looked across the chamber. They were remembered for what they changed. Elena felt the open crown on her wrist warm. For years, she had believed becoming Luna meant proving she could carry someone else's burdens without complaint. These women had understood something different. Partnership was not measured by how much one person disappeared for another. At the far end of the hall stood the sealed chamber mentioned above the entrance. Elena approached it, but the silver door remained closed. A circular hollow rested at its center, shaped like the royal seal Nathaniel had left upstairs. It needs your ring, Elena said. Nathaniel studied the lock. The ring I surrendered. Then perhaps surrendering it was the key. A soft sound moved through the hall. One of the 7 stone seats illuminated. Words appeared across its base. The king who releases his claim may approach, but only the queen may invite him forward. Nathaniel stopped immediately. Elena looked at him. You really intend to obey every mysterious sentence this place gives us? A faint smile touched his face. Considering what happened the last time powerful men ignored inconvenient ancient wording, yes. Elena laughed before she could stop herself. The sound surprised them both. It was the first easy laugh she could remember since Blackwood. Then footsteps echoed from the stairway. Margaret appeared carrying Nathaniel's royal ring. The seal began glowing the moment you entered. She handed it to Elena rather than Nathaniel. Another choice. Elena placed the ring into the circular hollow. The sealed chamber opened, revealing not treasure, but a single pedestal supporting an unfinished silver crown. Nathaniel remained at the threshold. Elena. She turned. He lowered himself to one knee. Her breath caught, and somewhere inside her an old fear awakened. Damon had once made beautiful gestures immediately before asking her to surrender something. Nathaniel seemed to read the hesitation in her face. I am not asking you for a bond. Elena said nothing. I am not asking you to stay. And I am not asking you to forgive what another man did by choosing me instead. His voice remained steady. I only want you to know that if this covenant gives me any right over your future, I refuse it. Elena stared at him. Nathaniel continued. If you become queen, let it be because you choose the responsibility. If you leave Mooncrest, I will make certain the laws you restored remain protected. Either way, you will never owe me yourself. The unfinished crown brightened. Elena's eyes filled, but she did not look away. Why would a king surrender the chance to choose his queen? Nathaniel answered quietly. Because I would rather lose the woman I love than become another reason she loses herself. The words settled into the hall. Elena's heartbeat stumbled. He had said love without using it as a demand. The silver crown rose slightly from the pedestal, but did not move toward her. It waited. Elena looked at Nathaniel kneeling before her. then at the records of women who had changed Mooncrest without surrendering who they were. Slowly, she extended her hand. "Stand up." Nathaniel obeyed. "If I ever walk beside you," Elena said, "you walk beside me too. Not ahead, not above. Always." Elena shook her head gently. "Do not promise always. Promise the next choice. Then make the right one again after that." Nathaniel's expression softened. "Then I promise the next choice." The unfinished crown suddenly opened like silver moonlight, revealing an inscription hidden inside it. "The king inherits power. The queen must earn trust." Elena's mark blazed, and all 7 stone seats turned toward her. But the crown still did not descend. Instead, a final doorway appeared behind the pedestal, bearing one question in ancient silver letters. What will the wronged woman do when the kingdom finally offers her everything? The question on the silver doorway remained unchanged, but Elena understood that the hall was not asking whether she wanted power. It was asking what power would reveal about her. She thought of Blackwood Hall, of Damon asking her to sacrifice while pretending she had chosen freely, and of the strange emptiness she had carried across 200 miles of winter road. Once, she might have believed becoming queen would erase that humiliation. Now she knew better. A crown could change her position. It could not rewrite her past. Only she could decide what the past would teach her. Elena stepped toward the doorway. "If the kingdom offers me everything, then I will ask what the kingdom needs." The ancient letters vanished. The door opened. Beyond it waited a circular chamber surrounded by thousands of silver names carved into stone. Some belonged to alphas, others to omegas, healers, farmers, teachers, guardians, and children. Nathaniel entered only after Elena looked back and nodded. Margaret followed quietly. At the center stood a simple stone basin filled with clear water. Elena approached, and Queen's grace illuminated the surface. Images appeared within it, not predictions, but memories preserved by the covenant. Elena saw previous queens standing beside ordinary people. She saw laws being rewritten. She saw frightened wolves receiving protection after refusing unwanted bonds. Then the water changed. Elena saw herself at Blackwood, always standing one step behind Damon. The image dissolved, replaced by her helping families at the Eastern Library. Then came Nathaniel kneeling without asking her to belong to him. Elena finally understood. Queen's grace had never awakened because she had been rejected. It had awakened because rejection had failed to make her cruel. The chamber filled with silver light. The unfinished crown floated through the doorway and stopped before her. Nathaniel's voice was quiet. "You still have a choice." Elena turned toward him. "And if I say no? Then tomorrow you return to the library, if that is where you want to be." She smiled. "You would let an ancient queen organize overdue books?" "I suspect the overdue books would be terrified." Elena laughed softly, then looked again at the crown. "I do not want to be queen because Damon decided I was disposable." Her voice strengthened. "I do not want this crown to prove that he was wrong about my worth. My worth existed before his mistake." Nathaniel's eyes warmed. "Yes." Elena touched the crown. "But if this position allows me to make certain no Luna, Omega, or anyone else is ever told that obedience is the price of belonging, then I choose it." The crown descended into her hands. Nothing forced her to wear it. Elena lifted it herself and placed it upon her head. The entire hall awakened. Silver light traveled through every carved name, across every ancient record, and upward through the palace. Above them, bells that had remained silent for 8 centuries began ringing throughout Mooncrest. Margaret lowered her head, tears bright in her eyes. "The covenant has recognized the Alpha King's queen." Nathaniel did not kneel this time. He stood exactly where Elena had asked him to stand. Beside her, Elena reached for his hand. "Nathaniel Ashford, I choose to remain in Mooncrest." His fingers closed gently around hers. "As queen. As myself first. Then as yourself first." She studied him for a moment. "And I choose to discover what this could become between us." Nathaniel smiled, but he did not pull her closer or turn the moment into another claim. "Then I choose the same." When they returned to the great hall, Damon was still there. His face changed when he saw the crown, but Elena felt no triumph. She no longer needed his regret to validate her future. Vanessa stood apart from him, holding a copy of the corrected records. Elena walked past the throne and stopped before the gathered council. "My first decree will not concern royal privilege," she said. It will concern consent. Queen's grace illuminated every bond record in the chamber. Damon lowered his eyes. Nathaniel remained beside Elena as the new law appeared in silver across the ancient council stone. No sacred bond shall be honorable where truth is withheld and choice is denied. Then, beneath that sentence, another line appeared without Elena touching the stone. The hall remembers one queen, whose law was never completed. Elena's smile disappeared. Nathaniel looked toward her. Margaret went pale. Deep beneath the palace, beyond the chamber they had just opened, something answered with a single ancient bell. 1 year after Elena became queen, the Eastern Library still kept a desk for her beside the tall window overlooking Mooncrest's winter market. She no longer worked there every afternoon, but whenever royal meetings became too full of titles and ceremony, she returned to the place where she had first learned that being ordinary could feel like freedom. Mooncrest had changed around her. The consent covenant now protected every sacred bond across the kingdom, requiring complete disclosure and voluntary agreement before any Luna or Omega could enter, renew, or release a bond. Elena had insisted that the law apply equally to every rank. Power, she had learned, became dangerous the moment it created exceptions for itself. Blackwood changed too. Damon returned home and publicly corrected the story he had once told about Elena. He admitted that she had never agreed to surrender her Luna bond, and that his decision had been shaped by fear, political pressure, and feelings for his first love that he had never honestly confronted. Elena did not return to watch his confession. She did not need to. Vanessa eventually left Blackwood and established a sanctuary where wolves recovering from broken bonds could receive temporary housing without surrendering their independence to another pack. She and Elena exchanged letters occasionally, not as rivals, but as two women who understood the cost of being given only half the truth. Nathaniel never asked Elena to become smaller for the crown. When they disagreed, they spoke until they understood what the disagreement was truly about. When Elena needed solitude, he gave it without turning distance into punishment. When Nathaniel carried too much responsibility alone, Elena reminded him that strength did not require silence. Their love grew slowly because neither treated love as proof of ownership. One evening beneath the first snow of winter, Nathaniel found Elena in the Hall of First Queens studying the unfinished law, mentioned by the ancient council stone. "You missed dinner," he said. Elena glanced at the clock and smiled. "By 3 hours. Margaret owes me $10. Elena laughed. "You were betting on how long I would stay?" "I said 4 hours. She said 6. He placed a cup of warm cider beside her. Elena looked at him, remembering the man who had once surrendered every ancient right to claim her before knowing whether she would remain. She touched his hand. "I chose well." Nathaniel smiled. "So did I." Then the floor beneath the 7th stone seat illuminated. Both of them turned. Queen's grace appeared across Elena's wrist, brighter than it had been in months. A narrow silver line traveled toward the far wall. Elena followed it until she reached a section of stone she had examined dozens of times. Tonight, an 8th doorway appeared. Nathaniel stopped beside her. That was not there yesterday. No. Above the doorway was the same crescent and crown Elena had first seen at Blackwood's Moongate. Beneath it appeared a name erased from every royal record they had found. Seraphine, First Wolf Queen. Elena's heartbeat quickened. The door opened into a small chamber containing no throne, only a stone table and a sealed silver book. She approached carefully. The moment Queen's grace touched its cover, 800 years of dust vanished. The book opened by itself. Its first pages described the creation of the first Queen Covenant. Then Elena reached the final entry. The handwriting ended halfway through a sentence. Margaret arrived moments later and stared at the page. History says Seraphine died before completing her final law. Elena shook her head. History was changed. Silver words appeared beneath the unfinished sentence. The first queen did not die. She entered the place beyond the covenant, so the next queen could finish what she began. Nathaniel looked toward the darkness beyond the chamber. Another door was forming there. Elena felt no fear, only the quiet certainty that becoming queen had never been the end of her story. She had once believed losing her place beside Damon meant losing her future. Instead, losing the life someone else had chosen for her had returned the one thing she needed to build her own. Her choice. Elena reached for Nathaniel's hand, and he waited until her fingers closed around his. Beyond the new doorway, ancient silver light awakened. Somewhere far beneath Mooncrest, a woman's voice whispered across 8 centuries, clear enough for Elena to hear every word. At last, the next queen has come.